Hello and welcome everyone to today's community event. We're so excited that you're here. I'm Megan Watson. I'm on the product marketing team here at Zendesk, and I will be our host for today. A big thank you to everyone who's taking time out of their day to join us and learn more about custom objects with Zendesk. All right, so a few quick community plugs before we dive in. First, we're really excited to invite you all to our first ever employee experience webinar, EX Trends 2024, which will be held on Tuesday, June 11th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You'll have the opportunity here to listen to our panelists from Indeed, New York Presbyterian Hospital, and TeamViewer, and they'll be sharing insights on how to future-proof your employee experience strategy, so you don't want to miss out. And we encourage you to scan the QR code for more information. I also think we'll be sharing a link to that registration page as well. All right, next up, the community team offers regional user groups. If you are not aware, this is a super great opportunity to meet up with users well, I should say Zendesk super users like yourself on a specific topic. So please check out the link provided to see these future meetups and get signed up. We'll share that in the link or in the chat. Speaking of user groups, next slide. We'd love for you to join us at our next developer user meetup. So expect to sharpen your skills, expand your network, and hear from product experts about best practices. So we invite all the developers in the house to sign up today and join the conversation. And we'll share that link here in the chat as well. One more update from the community team, and then we'll get going with the content. Zendesk Luminaries. I saw in the chat, we've got a couple of you here in the house, so thank you. Big shout out to you. These luminaries are a group of Zendesk enthusiasts who share their stories and get recognized and rewarded for their extraordinary efforts. It's really a way to level up and build your professional brand while helping others at the same time. It's only offered to current Zendesk customers, and we'd like to extend that invitation to you today and encourage you to apply if you haven't already. You can find out more via the link here in the chat, so we'll share that as well. All right, let's get to the meat of it. A quick overview of why we're here and what we're going to be covering today. We always start out with a quick overview of what we're talking about, which is custom objects. We'll then inspire you with top use cases to help you think about how you could take advantage of this exciting capability. Then the team will be providing you with a sneak peek of what's to come and where Zendesk plans to take this feature set, and then wrap up with key takeaways, as well as our favorite live Q&A with our product experts who are on the line today. Quick housekeeping. Yes, we are recording, and you will receive this recording, deck, and Q&A for reference after this event, so keep an eye out for that. And a friendly reminder to use the Q&A tab to ask a question, not the chat. Chat is our fun area where we share where we're from and where we're calling in from, so please use the Q&A, which we've just launched right now. So start asking those questions. All right, our experts. These are our experts who will be leading us through the content today. So let's just quickly introduce them. Andrea Wong, who's on the product marketing team here at Zendesk as well, and Ashwin Raju, who is a principal product manager. So he's on the product side. We're really grateful to have them here today, as well as those behind the scenes. You'll see some names who aren't showing their face because they're not speaking today, but they will be helping answer questions in the Q&A. Please be patient with them. Give them time to answer your questions. Anything we don't get to today, we promise to follow up after the event. So enough from me. I will now pass it off to Andrea.
Thank you, Megan. I am sure I speak for both Ashton and myself when I say that we are so excited to be here with our awesome community here today, especially as we dive deeper into custom objects. Because if there's one thing that we've learned from Relate, it's that personalized service is really that new norm for customers. And if you skip on over to the next slide, we can see some of these trends taking place, especially with AI taking center stage. In particular, we've seen that brands that lead in personalization improve customer loyalty 1.5 times more effectively than brands with poor personalization. And interestingly, we're seeing this trend in the EX space as well. In fact, in our most recent employee experience trends report at Zendesk, 87% of professionals let us know that great employee experiences are really what helps them retain and attract talent. And it's actually the same percentage that believes that personalization increases employee satisfaction. And if there's one thing that Zendesk knows, it's that personalized service really is the heart of intelligent customer experiences. So if you skip on over to the next slide, you're going to see some of the new innovations that we've been building out so that teams of really all sizes have the tools to deliver fast, personalized service in a way that's customized and tailored to their business. And of course, one of the features that we released in the last year is custom objects. So if you go ahead and skip ahead to the next few slides, we'll talk a little bit more about custom objects because we do know quite a few of you have not used the feature yet, which is A-okay. If you haven't used custom objects before, you may be familiar with some of our more standard objects like tickets, users, and organizations. The way that I like to describe custom objects is that they are that fourth magical category of data that can really be customized to fit any unique data that your business might have, but may not appear in Zendesk. So for example, if you are, let's say, an IT team and you want to bring in your asset data into Zendesk, you can quickly model this information in custom objects without any coding. And better yet, once that information is in Zendesk, you can surface it to your agents in their agent workspace to give them critical context. And probably one of our admin favorite features of custom objects, you can also integrate this data into your workflows and reports so you can really take action on the data that you're bringing in. But if we move on to the next slide, one of my most favorite parts of custom objects is just how flexible they can be. They can really represent any type of data, whether that's subscriptions, service catalogs, bookings, or reservations. And it's because of their flexibility that we've been able to help hundreds of service teams unlock their potential for use cases just beyond your typical data storage. So for example, we've definitely seen teams use custom objects to create that unified customer view within Zendesk, whether that's centralizing order data all in one place, or for our EX teams, having a central location for facilities as well as any equipment that you may have. And building onto this, you can also use custom objects for case management scenarios, like going back to IT, assigning assets to employees, or if you're working with professional services, keeping track of what hours that you've given to a customer. We've also seen teams use custom objects for task automation purposes. So automating approvals processes or syncs based off of their own unique data. But speaking of unique data, custom objects has really been able to shine in more of those custom workflow scenarios. Because not every team is alike, not every process is the same, and custom objects has really allowed teams in more specialized categories create some more tailored workflows. And while the possibilities with custom objects are truly endless, we have prepared 2 use cases that'll walk you through some of our top scenarios from the eyes of some fictional brands. So with that, let's go ahead and meet our first pseudo customer of the day, Gameforce. If you can move on to the next slide. Yes, so Gameforce is our leading producer of gaming gear. And as you can imagine, they have quite a robust product catalog. So what they have in mind is to bring in this catalog into Zendesk's custom objects so that agents have quick access to their resources. They can make recommendations based off of their customer setup. And admins are really interested in using this information to pull reports on exactly which products are the ones getting the most support tickets. So in this case, we can assume that their product catalog is stored externally and it doesn't require a lot of updating. So really, all we would need in this scenario are admin permissions in Zendesk, as well as a CSV of product data. Now, while we're looking at this from more of a retail lens, the steps that we're going to review are really the same ones that we've seen in other use cases like service catalogs, property management scenarios, or even account management. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the steps that Gameforce has taken. So in this scenario, we're really looking at that ability to centralize data and drive agent productivity. And similar to any use case that we recommend with custom objects, the very first step that we recommend is to always map out your custom objects. So if you go ahead and click over to the next slide, we have a few animations here. So as step one of our best practices is to always use either a spreadsheet or maybe your own personal documentation software to plan out your custom object models. And if you skip over to the next step, one of the ways that we recommend doing this is through a spreadsheet. And the reason why we recommend this is because custom objects are a data table that you're storing in Zendesk. So in this scenario, you can think of objects as your data table, the fields in your custom object as the columns in this data table, and of course, the rows as your custom object records. Now, this particular one is a very consolidated version, but as you build out your product custom object, that spreadsheet is going to be a great visual guide that it's going to help you create your objects much faster. And of course, once that object is created, you can move on to the next step of uploading your CSV of data to create custom object records in bulk. So we'll go ahead and skip over to the next step there. And one more time. Awesome. So in this particular scenario, Gameforce doesn't particularly want their agents to be able to edit the record information or product information that they're storing. So they're going to go ahead and update their permissions accordingly. And as a next step, they're going to add custom objects as a ticket lookup field. And what this really does is that it adds the custom object directly into their agent workspace so that their agents are able to look up products, maybe refer back to a product if it's been specified in the ticket, and so that they can personalize conversations that way. And it's the same lookup field that's going to help Gameforce in the next step, which is pulling reports. So reporting today uses custom objects lookup fields associated to tickets to pull reports. So in Gameforce's case, they can at any time pull a report for tickets by product, for example, so that they can report back to their higher ups at the end of the year. But with that, let's go ahead and do a quick recap of this particular scenario. All right, so the scenario we just walked through is one of the most common ones that we see for custom objects. But even then, there are quite a few things that we can take away from Gameforce. First of all, definitely take the time to plan out your custom object. You can use a spreadsheet or you can do whatever works best for your team. And what this really does is helps you map out exactly what relationships you need, exactly what data you might need in your workflows or workspaces, or even what you might need in your reports. But on that note, the second most important thing is to make sure that you've added your object as a ticket lookup field. If you are looking to surface this data to agents, this is a very critical step that you need to take. And of course, we cannot forget that native data importer tool. This is a great way to bulk update or create records in Zendesk. And there are a few limitations to be aware of. So those are linked in the slide, and hopefully we can get a link to that resource into the chat. But it's a great tool that we highly recommend using. But of course, Gameforce's product catalog, once again, did not need a lot of frequent updates. So if you're in a scenario where perhaps you occasionally update the information or you do routine or daily refreshes on your data, our APIs and maybe object triggers could be alternatives, but we'll go ahead and dive into that in our next scenario. So with that, let's go ahead and meet our second pseudo business, which is Mod Design. Now, Mod Design is a clothing retailer, and they have an in-house system that tracks their orders. But of course, the majority of their tickets are questions like, where is my order? Can I do a refund or an exchange? And what is the status of my refund? So like Gameforce, they do want to bring this data into Zendesk so that their agents can spend less time switching between systems and more time with their customers. And ideally, if this information is in Zendesk, they'll be able to automate workflows that initiates returns in another system. Now, unlike Gameforce, Mod Design is working with data that changes at any time. So managing these orders are going to require more coordination with external systems. This is very similar to situations that we see when it comes to reservation management or even IT asset management. And because we are working with more external systems, mod design's use case is going to require a little more coding and technical knowledge, but a lot of this can be done through custom objects APIs. So if we were to dive deep into their use case, the main difference between theirs and Gameforce is the fact that we're now looking to extend custom objects across the business. So we skip on to the next slide. We can go ahead and dive into their use case. Great. Now, very similar to Gameforce, again, we highly recommend planning out your custom objects. And in this case, taking the time to take note of what fields are going to be interacting with other systems. So that way, when you create your new order object, you might realize that you might create other custom objects as a way to supplement the information that's in this current custom object. Now, if this is the case for you, maybe you have a product custom object, a warehouse custom object, you can move on to the next step where mod design has modeled these complex relationships through lookup fields. These fields can work between custom objects, users, and organizations, similar to how they work with tickets. And once this step is completed, you can move on to the next step where you will use your custom objects external IDs to set up a bulk data sync with our custom objects API. This API is a huge and a great resource because it allows you to create, update, and delete records in bulk. But we also have other APIs as well. So if you skip over to the next step, we can see that mod design has leveraged a custom objects API to coordinate workflows and data syncs with their in-house system so that way their agents are up to date on what orders are coming in. And of course, as a last step and an added bonus, mod design is able to use custom objects in custom apps that allow agents to track other processes related to returns, exchanges, and more. So just to recap on mod design's use case, the main difference that we see here is, of course, that extension aspect of it. First and foremost, the one thing that we want to flag here is that you can definitely enrich other pieces of data in Zendesk with lookup relationship fields. For example, if you are, again, professional services, you might be able to create a contract custom object and associate it with organizations. Or in mod design's case, they can create an orders custom object and associate that with their customers for additional context. The second takeaway that we can have from them is the fact that you can integrate custom objects with existing workflows. And we highly recommend doing this because that's really where you get the most out of the data you bring into Zendesk. And also, if you don't plan to use your custom objects data in any workflows, reports, or in the future, your contact forms, another possible alternative you can think of is a sidebar app, which is definitely sufficient if you're just looking to surface information. Now, the last takeaway that we can have from mod design is that custom solutions can also be created if you have more complex requirements. So in this case, they're working with an in-house system, but we have APIs that have enabled mod design to connect those systems and set up those automated syncs. But with that, those are the two use cases that we see most often with custom objects. If you skip on over to the next slide, these use cases can be done with features that are available today. But of course, we have an exciting roadmap on deck so that you have more enhancements, more features, and capabilities that are really going to help you drive personalization across your service, and of course, integrate your data across your service operations. So I think this is now a perfect time to bring Ashwin onto the stage to walk you through what we have in store for the rest of 2024.
All right, thank you, Andrea. 2024 has been a huge year for custom objects, and there's a lot of new releases that we are very excited to launch. Before we relaunched custom objects last year in September, teams needed a developer to actually create and use custom objects in the legacy version of custom objects. With the new custom objects, admins and agents can create their objects, manage their data on these objects, report on this data, and use them in workflows without writing a single line of code. And we are continuing to evolve. Earlier this year, we released some really cool capabilities like dynamic filtering on lookup fields to personalize your ticketing experience, CSV data importer to create and update data using CSVs, an audit log integration to track changes to custom objects. We also released some new APIs that will help you integrate your external systems with custom objects and relate them to your users and organizations as well. This year, we are planning to release more really highly requested features, including help center integration of custom objects, triggers built on custom object record changes, expanded reporting on custom objects, and much more. And you're going to see a majority of this feature showing up in the next few months itself. Starting in 2025, we are also looking to revisit additional requests like granular permissions, sandbox integration with AI capabilities like Copilot and entity detection. Many of these community are actually community requests. And so we are so excited to give you a preview of some of the most anticipated features. Next slide, please. One of the most awaited features in custom objects is the ability for you to connect your custom objects to your help center. For example, you want to store your product catalog in custom objects, and you want to add a lookup relationship field in your ticket form and surface your product catalog to your customers in help center. With this feature, you not only reduce the agent's effort in filling this information in a ticket manually, but also, more importantly, build some automated workflows using this information. So in the above example of product catalog, you can route the tickets associated with all the products in a particular category to a single group or queue. For all of our customers and for all of those customers and app developers who are looking to build custom experience in guide and messaging, we are also enabling our custom object record APIs to support end user access based on the permissions set by the admin itself. Next slide, please. We are also extending multi-select fields types to users, orgs, and custom objects. This is a highly requested feature in the community and unlocks a lot of value for our customers. For example, you can create a custom field to capture the customer's channel preferences, the regions that or the regions they are operating on as an organization. Most exciting of all, multi-select fields will be compatible with the new triggers and reporting capabilities as well. I'd like to especially thank our customers for their feedback and patience around this feature. Next slide, please. Triggers is one of the most powerful features in Zendesk, and it enables you to build your complex business workflows. Through object triggers, we are expanding the power of triggers to custom objects as well. Traditionally, a trigger is always evaluated on a change in a ticket, and that evaluates a condition and performs an action. With this capability, a change in a custom object record will evaluate a condition and perform an action. We launched this an EAP version of object triggers in 2023 with very minimal conditions and actions to get some early customer feedback. Based on your feedback, we are introducing more actions and triggers to enable notifications and webhooks. This also comes with enhanced placeholder capabilities as well. Object triggers unlocks complex workflows like RMAs, warranty management, etc., to extend beyond Zendesk. It also enables you to build proactive notifications that potentially optimizes your call volumes while improving your customer experience. For example, if an order of a VIP customer is delayed, you can send a proactive notification to the customer and create a proactive ticket and assign it to a quick response team. We'll be releasing object triggers and placeholders in the next few weeks, so look out for that announcement. Next slide, please. We're continuing to expand on our current custom object reporting capabilities, starting with field level analytics. With the current capabilities, you can report on tickets using the custom object record name or ID. For example, the count of tickets for the different services requested. Rather than reporting on a custom object's name or ID, you will now, after this feature gets released, of course, you will now be able to build dashboards on reports using the custom object field values. For example, give me the count of tickets where the for the different categories within a service. So, or like give me the count of tickets where the order associated with that ticket was delayed status. These are all capabilities that will enable you to build more reporting within Explore itself. Next slide, please. These are all features that will be released throughout 2024. But to thank you for all the community feedback, we've prepared a demo that will walk you through the new experiences live within product. First, to set the context, let's meet our hypothetical company, CoffeeX, which sells coffee machines and other equipments to local cafes. As part of this demo, I will take you through two different stages of the journey of Dawn, a manager at Cool Beans Cafe. Through this journey, we'll cover multiple low-code and pro-code features, including help center integration, end-user permissions, triggers, including object triggers as well, placeholders, multi-select fields types, search filtering APIs, all of that good stuff. If you have more questions as you see the demo, continue to post it and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of this whole presentation. So let's dive right in. I will go ahead and present my screen. All right, I'm sharing my screen now. All right, we start our journey with Don buying a new equipment for his cafe, and this is part of this involves a little bit of pro code custom built pages, at least in the stage 1, and we'll also show a low code experience in stage 2 of this whole overall journey, right? So Don buys a new device. He goes into the CoffeeX website. He wants to register that product. So he enters in the serial number. He selects the product category. It's a coffee machine. And he'll see all the coffee machines that are being sold by CoffeeX. Now, what if he had selected steamer? It would only show the steamers that are associated, that are being sold by CoffeeX. And what if he had selected French press? He would see only the French presses that are being sold by the company, right? So this is driven by the search filtering API capability that we'll be releasing soon. So for the time being, let's assume that this person has bought a rapid espresso machine. I go ahead and submit the request. This is in guide. And once I submit the request, a few things are happening in the background. And let me show you what's going on. And I'll go to the agent mode right now. So this is Don Newman, who is a customer. And once Don Newman had registered, point number 1, a custom object record gets created from guide into Zendesk. And it has a serial number, it has the product, it has some additional information which I'll be covering as well. So a custom object record gets created. The moment a custom object record gets created, an object trigger runs on it, which sends a proactive email to the customer in the channel of their preference. So this is where multi-select fields on users come into the picture. So in the channel of their preference, it'll send an email or a text based on whatever they've selected, and thank them for the registration of their product. Now, the third thing that happens is that the object trigger also goes to the ERP system of CoffeeX and identifies more details of the device itself. So I've got the serial number, I can get the purchase date, the warranty date, warranty status, all of that stuff, and enhance the data that is already there as part of this device itself. So it gets embedded into the same record. And now I've got more details about this particular device, and I have already associated that device to the user as well as to the product as well. All right, so that's stage 1. So moving on to stage 2, like a few months later, Don finds out that one of his devices is having an issue. So I'm going to assume back Don's identity. So Don is going in and he's submitting a service request. And he says the coffee machine is not working. And when he selects the My Device, he sees only the devices that he has registered in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and select Malan A1234. I'm going to capture some additional text over here, which captures the details, and I'm also capturing the error code that I'm seeing on the screen. I can also potentially add an attachment and submit the request. So the request has been submitted. Now, a few things happen in the background. A ticket gets created, and it automatically gets assigned to the coffee machines support tech group. Why? Because the device that I've associated with this particular ticket is of category coffee machine. So I'm going to send all those tickets that have a coffee machine as a product category to this team now. So that's again ticket triggers, and this is taken up by Ryan Humble, who is part of this group. He looks at the ticket. He wants to know more details about the device. So once I go into the device, I will see that, hey, a previous service order was made, and it said that the steamer needed to be replaced. I'll get to how we got this, but then again, Ryan, the tech support person, knows that, hey, there was a steamer that was replaced in the past. So now he goes back to the ticket. He works with Don to identify the issue, and he finds out that the steamer was not properly installed. So he's going to submit the information. He's going to say steamer was properly installed, and he goes ahead and solves the ticket. Now, when I solve the ticket, there's one thing that happens in the background. A permanent record of that transaction is created and associated with this device. So this is a custom object record that I'm creating, so that next time there is a problem with this device, I don't have to scour through 10 or 20 different tickets. I would exactly know what were the previous services that were made and who made those services. In this case, Ryan Humble made the service, and steamer was properly needed to be properly installed, and these are the details of the service order. So in short, you're able to capture all this information in a custom object to get that permanent record, so that it's easy for me to associate the additional details that I have for this device, and get more context when such an issue for that device comes in the future. So how did I make all this happen? Point number one, step one is to create your object. So let me go to the admin experience. In your admin experience, I've created 3 objects. The first 2 objects are for my stage 1. So I brought in a product catalog in this product object. I created a second object called my device to capture all the registrations of that of each customer. And within the my device, I have created a lookup relationship that associates this device to a customer as well as to a product. Now, the second use case required service order as a custom object, where I've associated the service order to the different users, the machine, all of that stuff in a lookup relationship field as well. So step 1 was to create the object. Step 2 is to bring in the data. In these 3 objects, the product catalog is the one that I'd like to bring in data. So I use data importer to actually import the data into custom objects using a CSV bulk upload. Step 3 is to surface the necessary information in a ticket. Again, I use lookup relationship fields to associate the ticket to the device that has the problem, right? So effectively, when I'm creating a service order, I'm creating a lookup field called device in the ticket, so that I can associate that device to the ticket itself, right? So that's how that's my third step, associating the necessary details to the ticket, so that the end user themselves can select the order that they have or the device that they have a problem with. Step 4 is to build all those workflows. There are 2 trigger capabilities. One is your ticket triggers, and one is your object triggers. Within object triggers, whenever a customer is registering a new device, I send them a registration response based on their channel preference. So it could be an email or it could be a text, and I could send them a response based on that, based on their preference that they have mentioned. And the second thing that I've created is an object trigger, which will go check the ERP system, get more information, push that information into that same custom object record as well. On the ticket trigger side, I've also created 2 triggers, which is one is to route the ticket to the coffee machine group, and second is at the end when I'm solving the ticket, if the service order was because of a part not working or whether the machine not working is an issue, I create a permanent record of the transaction in a service order through a webhook itself. So those are the things that I have done in the past. There are some additional things around custom experiences that we have created, especially for this page. Those are all using the custom object record APIs that we have enabled. So that is around the demo that I wanted to show you. So I will stop sharing so that we can show you back the slides. All right. So these are just 2 use cases that I showed you, right? So the reality is that you can have many more such use cases that you can build with custom objects. Some of it might be low-code experiences, something like a product catalog or service catalog. It'll just take like 20 to 30 minutes for me to build something like that. It could be a low-code experience solution, wherein, let's say, I want to synchronize my contract information with my CRM systems, or I want to bring in my entitlements of the customer, or associate my entities, customer entities with their profiles. All of that would require some API usage or API push data from the CRM into Zendesk. Those would be low-code solutions, and based on the complexity of the features that you're looking at, there could be high custom solutions wherein you want to build really complex returns processing solutions, or build really complex warranty management solutions with custom pages shown for that. So the possibilities are really endless with custom objects, and you have that feature in your per user, especially if you're in any of the suite plans or in the support enterprise plans. So I would really urge you to leverage it so that you can maximize the value of Zendesk itself. I will move on to the next slide. I think I'll hand it back to Andrea, right?
Yes. Thank you so much for walking us through that demo, Ashwin. I'm always super excited to see the different ways that we can use custom objects. And of course, super excited to see these new features come to life as well. Now, I was in the Q&A. I do see we have quite a few questions to get through. But before we dive into that, we want to cover a few key takeaways that we hope that you learned from today's session. So starting off with our first key takeaway, I think it's very clear to everyone here that custom data is going to be critical for your service experiences. Of course, it's going to help enrich the agent context so that your agents have more information that they can use to personalize conversations and the entire experience itself. And as we saw from Ashwin's demo, custom objects can be used to automate those manual tasks, whether it's something that is through triggers or through our APIs, as you have just seen. And ultimately, when you combine these aspects together, you can deliver faster, more personalized service that's going to boost agent productivity and satisfaction, hopefully, for both your agents and your customers. So let's go ahead and move on to the next takeaway. And Ashwin, I believe you are on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. All right. Custom objects, again, as I mentioned, can be utilized for a wide variety of use cases based on your business need. You've seen it used to create a unified customer view or 360-degree view. It can be built for case management solutions like warranties or returns, or it can also be able to automate your business processes within Zendesk itself. Because of their flexibility, service teams have been using it to innovate really new solutions and drive organizational efficiency within their Zendesk instance itself. Next slide, please.
Yes, and just to wrap up our final key takeaway, while custom objects are certainly powerful on their own, they can definitely be extended through the use of our open standard tools. So we talked a lot about APIs today. Those are an amazing resource, whether you're just looking to use our bulk record capabilities to set up those data syncs, or if you're just looking to integrate custom objects with any other system. But as you saw in the demo, custom objects can also be paired with webhooks to trigger workflows or new tickets whenever an external event happens. And as you may have seen in that roadmap slide from earlier, we are planning to integrate custom objects into Zendesk's integration services, or ZIS. And through this integration, you'll be able to update external systems or trigger external workflows whenever you make changes to a custom object record in Zendesk. But by integrating your data and your systems together, you'll be able to increase collaboration, not just across teams, but across systems, and hopefully deliver more faster resolutions to your customers and employees. But with that wraps up our key takeaways for today's conversation. And I believe now it's time to jump into the live Q&A.
Andrea, as always, you're absolutely right. Before we get into our curated Q&A, we do have a couple questions, Ashwin, from our demo that I wanted to make sure we didn't forget. The first one is, and please forgive me for not understanding the it of what we're describing, but I'm going to do my best. When custom objects sends the proactive, or sends that proactive, is it stored as a ticket record available in the workspace? Is that something we're able to answer, Ashwin?
Yes, absolutely. Right. So it is not stored as a ticket record. So object trigger does not involve any tickets. So like what happened was that when I created a custom object record, at that point I'm sending a thank you email to the customer, right? So it would be stored as an activity that was performed when the object was created. It is not stored as a ticket, a separate ticket itself. Now, how do I track like whether the object trigger did what it was supposed to do? That is something that we are working on to ensure that you have like complete track of all the changes that have happened in a custom object record. That's something that we are coming up later this year as well.
Perfect. We have a couple more. Another question regarding the demo: did you pull data from Guide to populate that request that you showed?
So what I did from Guide was to call the custom object record API to push the data, first push the data on the registration. And the second thing was to pull the data of all the registrations that this customer has made back into Guide as a custom page itself. Now, how did that make that happen? We are planning to introduce end user permissions on custom object records, and that will enable you to utilize your existing APIs even for Guide interactions.
Great. And then our last question: suppose you want to surface data from a database, but also enable agents to make changes to the database. Example, view order data, but also change them. Would custom objects that are synced with this database, accompanied by an in Zendesk app to give agents access to this data, be the way to go?
So again, it depends on the use case itself. So you have a separate database, you want to sync up that database with custom objects. The moment you bring that data into custom objects, you can use that in your workflows, in your reporting. The moment you bring that information, it'll be easier for you to make your experience more flexible. You don't really need to have like a sidebar app to surface that data as well, right? So those are some of the value additions of bringing that data in rather than just directly integrating that data to that third-party system. But again, it depends on the speed at which that data changes and the speed, the integration that you'd like to see as well. So, but yeah, it's in short, yes, you can integrate your external systems with Zendesk using our APIs. And you can leverage the data that you have within custom objects to build your workflows like object triggers, surface them into tickets, use them in reporting, all of that good stuff. I don't know whether I answered that question, but yeah, it was a long question.
I think that was a great answer, Ashwin. And speaking of answers, we do have a lot of questions in our Q&A chat. We're going to do our best to get through all of them. Also, we still have experts in our Q&A chat section of the event. So if you have questions that you want to submit, go ahead, submit them there. We have experts answering them. And if we do have time today, we might be pulling answers from that section of the Q&A into our Q&A right now to address live. So if we don't get to your question in the chat, we might bring it into the Q&A that we're running right now. And on that note, let's move on to the next question. Awesome. And this one's for you, Andrea. This one was asked by Shannon, and Shannon wants to know, is developing coding required to effectively use custom objects? I think we had a lot of people concerned whether or not they had to have like code knowledge to even like leverage this part of the product.
No, 100%. And Shannon, this is a great question. And very fortunately, I'm excited to say you definitely don't need coding experience to effectively use custom objects. A lot of those integrations that we had talked about before, like ticket or object triggers or even reporting, that can be done all without code. I can say myself as someone who's not an experienced coder, I have definitely been able to build out custom object demonstrations for customers without having to bring in an external developer to demonstrate those features. And I would say that most cases where you would need coding is definitely in those scenarios where you want to connect custom objects to an external system. Again, you'll likely need to use our API for those, but we are investing in a way to making that experience low to no code as well. So excited to share more information about that later this year, hopefully.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. I believe this one is for Jacqueline. And Jacqueline, just to confirm you're on. Yep, there you are.
I am.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
sorry. Yeah, so this is another really good question. We spent a lot of time before launching custom objects trying to make sure we focused in on this from a documentation perspective. So I would say that's probably the best place to start. We have understanding custom objects, which sort of gives you a high-level overview, what you can do with it, what you need to be thinking about. And then as you progress through that, planning your custom object workflow sort of walks you through a whole bunch of questions and considerations you want to think through before you start creating them. Once you've sort of done your mapping, once you've thought about it, then you can turn on custom objects and start implementing your custom objects. And we've got articles for each of those. And we have a custom objects resource article as well that sort of gives you all of the articles you might need as you advance through using it.
Thanks, Jacqueline. So the next question we have is going to be for you, Ashwin, and that question comes from Ben. Ben wants to know, or Ben asks, I'd like to see how relationships work with custom objects. There's a few examples of relational database structures within Zendesk. We'd love to see this expand.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben, for that question. With the new custom objects, lookup relationships are the way to build relationships between records. Let's say I have a custom object called contract, and I want to associate it to a user. All I need to do is to create a lookup relationship in the contract that points to the user. Always remember that a lookup relationship creates a many-to-one relationship. Hence, in this case, you can associate many contracts to the user, but one user would be part of that contract through the lookup relationship field. And when you go to the user's profile, you can see all the contracts associated with that user as well. We are also looking at enabling customers to build many-to-many relationships in Zendesk. And this year, we are planning to enable admins to auto-generate auto numbers for their name field so that they can create something called a junction object that could help you build many-to-many relationships. We're also exploring the ability to extend your lookup relationships to capture multiple values or multiple relationships. The timeline for that is a little TBD, but we are still working in that direction at this point.
Perfect. Perfect. This next question, by the way, is for you as well, Ashwin, so you're not off the hook yet. This one comes from John, and John wants to know, how can custom objects be used to track tickets for a particular model or serial number? And how can it be used to track trends?
Makes sense. So most of it is very similar to what I showed in the demo itself. So as I showed in the demo, once you create a lookup relationship from a ticket to your particular device model, you can see all the tickets associated with that device itself. Now, the key aspect that I wanted to cover was the second part of your question. How can it be used to track trends? The reporting capabilities that we'll be releasing this year will enable you to report on the number of tickets that came in for the different device models that you have. So for example, let's say your device would have a specific serial number that would be the name of that device. But if you hop into the details of the device, you might have a device model or device category, right? You can use that value to build your triggers here so that you know how many devices are getting returns or how many devices are getting complaints. Those are trends that you can track once you have this capability around reporting.
Perfect. Thanks for that answer, Ashwin. Let's move on to our next question. This one's actually for both of you, Andrea and Ashwin. This one comes from Tatiana, and she wants to know, would it be possible to get a couple of cookbooks for typical order management custom objects integrated with workflows?
Yes, I was super excited to get this question because this is something that we've been actively working on. So Tatiana, that's good news. We're looking to ideally create some, let's say, like help center recipes for common scenarios like order management. And as Ashwin had hinted earlier in the presentation, we are also looking at some more like built-in resources. Like, let's say some examples that we had been talking about are templates for custom objects that are very common, or even templated workflows. So while these aren't going to be released immediately, we are excited to release them in the coming months. But if there's one thing that we'd like to ask the community here, we'd definitely love to hear more about what use cases you are exploring, what scenarios you're thinking about for custom objects, and that's just going to help us prioritize the right use cases for these resources.
Just a little side note, we are sending out a quick survey after this event. So if there is feedback, like, for example, more cookbooks, clearly, Luke, I can see in the chat, cookbooks are really important to you, or anything else that you want us to know about this area of the product, please let us know in that survey so that way we can go ahead and pass that along to our team. All right, let's go on to the next question. This one is going to be for you, Ashwin. This comes from Thomas. And Thomas asks, when lookup fields become end user editable, will they use the same or different filters as the agent side of those fields?
So as we release the product, they will have the same features. Again, Thomas, thank you for the question. Right, as we release the feature right now, you will have the same filters that apply to both end users and agents. However, with dynamic filters, it will work a little differently, right? So, for example, if I want to define a filter which says, show me all the devices assigned to the requester, right? Very similar to what I showed. When it comes to Help Center, the requester is the same as the logged in user. So those are things that will be automatically taken care of, even if you are using the same filter. Having said that, post 2024, when we are introducing granular permissions on custom objects, you will see that there will be differences in terms of the results that the end users will see versus what the agent will see. So for example, let's say the end user has access to only certain devices that they own. You will only see those devices as part of the results. But when the agent looks into it, they'll see a lot more because the agent have access to all of the devices, for example. Having said that, we'd love to hear any other use cases where you think strongly that there needs to be a different set of filters for agents versus a different set of filters for end users. And again, feedback is what helps us make this product better. So that's kind of the last point that I want to mention.
I can echo that. Feedback is definitely important, and that lets us make these products better for sure. Ashwin, I think the next question is for you and Tyler. And yep, and if we could get this, Tyler, perfect, awesome. So this comes from Seamus, and Seamus asks, what are best practices for accessing custom objects via API for use with AWS services?
Yeah, so hi, Tyler here. So I think it's a little tough to answer this one, but we've got a full suite of APIs available for custom objects, right? Your full suite of CRUD APIs. And there's lots of best practices, right? Security and that sort of thing. So rather than trying to answer this with like a broad spectrum of responses, I think I would direct you probably to go to our developer.zendesk.com site, where you can find kind of examples of all the different APIs we have and how they can be used with things like AWS services.
Awesome. And Ashwin, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, right? So as Tyler mentioned, we have a huge set of APIs, and that will help you integrate with any system, including AWS services, right? So that's kind of why we built all these capabilities based on the feedback that we got.
Perfect. Our next question is going to be for Jacqueline, and this comes from Trush. If I said your name wrong, I do apologize. Feel free to Slack me or email me, and I will send you some swag for that horrible name pronunciation. But the question is, are there ways to bulk upload information for custom objects?
Yeah, definitely. So you can do bulk uploads of custom object records. Just to make sure we're all using the same terminology. In Admin Center, you can do this using the data importer page. We have a whole article on this. I think it'll be linked when we share the post production of this event. And then you can also do it via the API. We have custom object record API endpoints that support the bulk upload of that data as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacqueline. And our next question is going to be for you, Andrea. This comes from Adam. And Adam asks, any plans to have API-based syncing instead of exporting and re-importing?
Yes, so this is definitely going to be a fast follow to Jacqueline's answer, but we did release those bulk API capabilities last quarter. So this includes both individual and bulk APIs that you can use to create or update objects. And as an alternative, I know it's not API based, but something that we wanted to throw out there is that Object Triggers and Zendesk's integration services, again, once those are integrated, those can also be used to create outbound API calls so that you can send updates to external systems. And just as a shout out to what Jacqueline had mentioned earlier, if let's say you're not into coding and you'd rather use the native importer, we are still working on improvements to that experience as well, so that in the future you should be able to update and insert information through that as well.
Thanks, Andrea. All right, our next question is going to be for Ashwin.
All right.
Oh, I was wrong. It's going to be for you again, Andrea. My apologies. And this comes from Nicholas. Nicholas asks, what are some of the common use cases you're seeing in EX and CX for that use custom objects?
No, definitely. And Nicholas, you had two great questions, so we had to split them apart. But when it comes to CX, I would say that at least the top two that come to mind are definitely order management. We've seen a lot of use cases in this conversation today, but that really includes anything from, triggering those exchange workflows or refund workflows. And then I would say the second category for CX is also product management. This could be products, services, properties, anything else that would just need to be visible to agents and integrated into workflows. And then from the EX side, I would definitely say that light asset management has been a very popular use case for custom objects. And I mostly say light just because custom objects aren't intended to outright replace any ITSM systems you are using. But if you wanted to use some of those native Zendesk capabilities with your assets, custom objects has been a great tool for quite a few businesses, really. And then I would say the only other use case that I would give a shout out to are HR use cases, which have taken on various forms depending on the company that we were working with.
Perfect. All right. So this next question is for you, Ashwin. This one comes from Nicholas. Oh, no, sorry. We had the wrong slide up. This one is from Heather. And Heather asks, how scalable are custom objects for very large enterprises?
I think, Devon, you missed a question. Can we?
Yes, I believe Nicholas had two questions.
Yeah, did we skip one by mistake? Brett, let's go back one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. So this one, again, from Nicholas, what are the biggest reasons companies are adopting custom objects instead of building API integrations to pull data from source systems?
Oh, this is a great question. I think I touched upon that as part of the talk track as well. So here are some of the a few reasons why customers are looking to leverage custom objects instead of just directly integrating with their APIs and bringing that up in a sidebar app, right? One, workflows. With custom objects, you can use your triggers and workflows using your business data. This will enable you to optimize your agent effort and improve ticket resolution time. Two, reporting. You will be able to report on the tickets using the custom object associated custom object data as well. Three, flexible agent interface. Let's say you build a sidebar app to surface 5 fields of your contracts. And let's say you want to surface an additional field for your contract. If you have built in a sidebar app, you would probably bring in a developer and add that additional field as well. With custom objects, an admin can go and add this data to the agent interface in a matter of minutes, because the contract data is already existing in custom objects. It's all about surfacing that additional field to the agent as part of their ticketing interface. When it comes to large amount of fast moving data, like let's say an ERP system overall, I would still recommend to use a sidebar app in such a situation. But for data that you need to use for your triggers, your workflows, for your reporting, and slow moving data, let's say like your product catalog, your assets, all of that stuff, you would still want to store that information in a custom object and use them in your workflows, and that will give you a lot more value than just keeping them in a separate system.
Thanks, Ashwin, and thanks, Nicholas, for those both those great questions. By the way, we are ending our event at 12:15. So we're going to get through as many questions as possible in the chat and throughout our curated deck. So if you don't see your question answered live here or in our chat, don't worry. We're going to go ahead and collect all the questions that we had submitted and get those repurposed out in our event summary that we'll be publishing in our help center and sending out to you all with a recording of this event. That being said, let's get through as many as possible and move on to our next question. This one comes from Heather, and Heather asks, how scalable are custom objects for a very large enterprise? The question that I mistakenly asked last time. And this is for both you, Andrea, and Ashwin.
Definitely. I can probably take a stab at it. Ashwin and I talked a little bit about this, and the way that we think of scalability and is in regards to workflows you might be working on, data you might be storing in Zendesk, as well as how you would manage that data. And when it comes to workflows, yes, custom objects can definitely be scaled for enterprise use cases. In fact, a number of the businesses that we are working with are enterprises that are using custom objects. But as we mentioned to Shannon before, it's more likely that you're going to integrate with different systems in this scenario. And in that case, you'll definitely become more familiar with our APIs for those scenarios. But when it comes to data storage itself, you do not have any per plan limits on how many records you can create with custom objects. That being said, we do have a hard limit for all accounts at 50 million records. For most enterprises, this is more than enough records for them to use custom objects. But if you have concerns about exceeding this 50 million record limit, one thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned it earlier before, custom objects are not intended to turn Zendesk into a replacement for any ERP or order systems or ITSM systems that you might have. So that is one thing to keep in mind, depending on the use case that you're exploring.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea and Ashwin. Let's go ahead and move on to our next question. And this one's for you, Andrea. This one comes from Steve. Steve wants to know, is there a limit to how many custom objects can be used?
There are. So if you're not sure what your custom object limits are, you can go to our pricing page at zendesk.com, because you can have up to 50 objects per account. And this could be, this could be like 50 types of unique information that you can use, but there are also lookup fields relationship limits depending on the plan that you have. So I highly recommend checking out our pricing page, and then that's the best way for you to find out what limits you have for your account.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer, Andrea. Let's go and move to our next question for Ashwin. This comes from Dan. Dan wants to know, I'd like to understand the model for end user access and how we could run automations against them. I believe Dan's also in the chat. So hi, Dan.
Hey, Dan. All right, so I think this is a really good question, an important one as well, right? So there are two parts to the question. One is how am I going to manage the end user access, like permissions, like how do I ensure that I give the right permissions to users? And second is how can I build automation capabilities against your custom objects itself? So the first question is, as we launch custom objects, we will be having permissions at an object level. For example, let's say I have my product catalog. If I give access to the product, access to end users to the product catalog, technically they'll be able to access all the records in that product catalog, right? And you can control the view, edit, create, or delete permissions within your admin experience still, so that you give the right permissions to your end users. Now, one of the things that we are considering post 2024 is the ability for me to even restrict the access further, right? So for example, let's say if I'm having a contract data, or let's say there is some sensitive data that I'm storing in my custom objects, and I want to ensure that my end users have access to only the contracts that they are associated with. So for that, we are looking at granular level permissions, which will be coming out at a later point of time. Right now, you have filters to ensure that when Ashwin is joining and Ashwin sees only his contracts, but filters are not permissions. I just wanted to be very transparent on that, right? So filters are a way to surface the right information to the person, but if the person has access to APIs, they'll be able to access the underlying data as well. Now, the second part of the question is the fact that how can we run automations against them, right? So one workflow that I showed around when a customer registers the product, they'll be able to they're getting an automated response to the registration that they made. But that's because of the fact that you made a change in a custom object record, and that change initiated a trigger, and that initiated a response. Now, when it comes to automations, in the technical sense of within Zendesk, automations is wherein there is no action, and there is no change in the ticket or in the object itself, and there is an action that needs to be performed over there. So that capability does not exist right now. For me to initiate object triggers, there should be a change in the custom object record to start with, so that the evaluation of the trigger happens. So automations in the true sense does not exist, but then again, you can create automated flows using object triggers. Or you can create flows using object triggers the moment you have a custom object record change itself.
Awesome. Thanks for that great answer, Ashwin. And again, great question, Dan. Let's go ahead and move on to our next one for Andrea. This one comes from Katie. And Katie wants to know, can we add custom object field management for non-admins? Yeah, I mean, so
I was about to say, Ashwin, you'd be the best person to answer this.
So can we add field management for non-admins? At this point, no. Right? So the field management is still restricted to admins because it's a fairly powerful capability. You want to restrict it to admin folks. But if you're an app developer, right? You still need to install your app as an admin, and then your agents can view the data inside those objects, or the data inside the fields of the objects. It's you cannot right now. You will not be able to create an object or add a field as a non-admin.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashwin, for addressing your question clearly. This next one is for Andrea, I promise. And this one comes from Lydia. Lydia wants to know, can we add the creation/modification of custom objects to apps so that way it can be installed in different instances?
Yes, you should be able to use apps to build custom objects, but we're also working to expand this area in general. So for example, we are looking to introduce or expand additional APIs for our app developers. And this includes features like the ability to identify objects that were created by an app. But yes, you should be able to use them or create them.
Perfect, perfect. This next one also is for you, Andrea. This question comes from Bernie. And this question is, can you explain how we can use custom objects for deeper macros and form integration?
No, 100%. We had some great conversations with this at Relate, and we're excited to have both of these features get released in the coming months. When it comes to deeper macro personalization, again, when it comes to the fields that you can have, like again, going back to orders, if you wanted to use placeholders to input order status, that's a great way to include in your macro so that agents can personalize their conversations at scale. And then when it comes to form integrations, as you saw in Ashwin's demo, that is just a great way to automatically surface information to your agents to really streamline that ticket intake and make sure that customers are directed to the right specialists at the right time. But again, both features that we are looking to release in the coming months, and we're excited to have you use them, Bernie.
Thanks for that great question, Bernie. Our next question is going to be for Ashwin. And this one comes from Manasi. And the question is there a way to show all the custom object records related to a ticket requester on the ticket interface?
All right. Hey, Mansi. So that's a good question. Like, let me give you an answer with an example, right? So let's say I have a ticket that is created which has a requester, and the requester has multiple contracts associated with that requester, right? You have two options to surface this information in a ticket, in the ticket interface. One, you can create a lookup relationship in the ticket that points to the contract object, and you can add a filter which says, give me only the contracts where the customer in the contract is equal to the requester of the ticket. So that's one way of making a selection. Now, if I want to see the list of all the contracts that this user has in the ticketing interface, you can also build a sidebar app to surface that information. We already have APIs which can, fetch that information, search within that information. All of that stuff already exists, right? So you can definitely leverage those capabilities. Even the search filtering API that we'll be releasing would also be able to support this capability. Now, we are looking at making this capability as a native experience, but then again, it will not happen in 2024 at this point. So that's where we are at this point.
Perfect. So we have one question left for time today we're going to address. Brett, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing, that's fine at this point. But this question came from Dan. And we really wanted to kind of end the event on this question because we thought it was such a great one. And his question is, when will Salesforce integration support, or when will the Salesforce integration support custom objects? It's been radio silence in the community for months since a commitment was made to work on the integration in 2024. And we do have something to say about that today.
Yes, Dan, thank you so much. I believe you joined our Salesforce Roundtable last year, so thank you for following up, and apologies for any limited information that we've shared. We have continued working on this integration through 2024, but as you can imagine, we had many different options when it comes to integrating custom objects and Salesforce together. So while it's taking time to determine what the best experience and the route is for our customers, I'm excited to share that we are looking at a solution right now that would not only integrate with Salesforce, but with other integration partners as well. The feature itself is still in development this year, but what we are ideally trying to create is essentially like a no-code iPaaS solution that's going to equip you with a library of pre-built connectors and workflow templates. So again, you can organize those integrations with Salesforce and ideally with other partners that you're working with as well. So we just wanted to get that out there because we know that you had participated in the past, and we saw that you had asked this again in the chat.
Oh, you're on mute.
Who can read lips?
Dan, I think.
Apologies on that. We do have one more question we wanted to ask. If I know we're at time, but we had some people in the chat asking, could we address that CRM question that we were going to cover, but ran out of time to do so? It came from Matt, And Matt asked, how could we use custom objects to simulate a CRM tool?
So my assumption, Matt, over there is that we are talking about a sales CRM. In a sales CRM, at least I worked in Salesforce, the sales part of it. You have a few standard objects that are part of it, right? You got your opportunities, you've got your accounts, you've got your contacts, and you can also have your tasks and things like that, right? So the basic level of CRM capabilities can be built with custom objects today. So let's say you wanna associate your you wanna create opportunities as a custom objects. Yes, absolutely, you can do that. Now, the things that will not work is like it connects with another question that I saw in the chat as well, right? So like lookup relationships help you associate that opportunity to an organization, or if you want to capture it as a separate account as a separate object, you can always do that. But then again, it will help you associate that opportunity to an organization. But if you delete that organization, the opportunities automatically do not get deleted. Right? So look, it is not a parent-child relationship capability that we have at this point. You can definitely utilize custom objects to build that that sales CRM capability, but I just wanted to call out that there are certain limitations. If you can't build like a Salesforce equivalent sales CRM. Like you'll have like some basic capabilities that you can build using your custom objects.